I'm Gabby, and this is my story. I'm making a project about my past, and I think I'm gonna have a heart attack. So I was sexually abused by several people. It happened to me when I was very young. I was, from what I can recall, 3 years old, and it happened by the hands of my older brother. From what I remember, it was my mom would leave to work or go do whatever it is that she would go do, and my siblings would take care of us, and while my brother was taking care of us, he would have me go to the room with him, and that's where all the abuse would happen, in my parents' room. I remember he would always place me on the same side of the bed, and it was just a certain spot that he would pick, and it was my view was there was a window behind him, and then it was him, and then I would be on the edge of the bed, and he would either be rubbing his penis on my vagina and yeah, he would make me orgasm, and but also he would make me give him oral, and he would do the same to me. I even remember I even remember having the thought that he was my boyfriend. But I should mention that he was around 12 years older than me, so he was a lot older than I was. And when he would finish everything, he would ejaculate on my stomach and then have me go to the bathroom, and he would wash me off. And that was just a ordinary day in my life, which I knew it was wrong because he told me that if I told anybody, I would get in trouble, and the little fighter in me wanted so badly to be heard and be rescued and be saved. So when my mom would go to work, she was a caretaker, so sometimes she would take me with her every now and then, and I would always beg her to take me with her, but obviously it's her job and she couldn't always take me with her. But the few times that she did, I remember specifically it would always be when she would be folding clothes. I would be sitting on top of this counter and she'd be folding clothes, and I would ask her, I would tell her like, hey mom, I want to tell you something. And unfortunately I haven't always had the most supportive mom, so I would just be sitting there, my little child self, and I would ask her, I would be like, I want to tell you something, but you know, she would get frustrated because I would hold back a lot, and I was very afraid to tell her because I felt like I was going to get in trouble because that's what I was told. I said, so I would hear my brother's voice in my head saying like, oh, if you say anything, you're going to get in big trouble, and I always felt like it was my fault that all this was happening. So she would get frustrated because I would hesitate to even say stuff to her. So she'd be like, I'm not gonna beg you to tell me anything. I'm not gonna wait on you to tell me. So I would just revert into myself. And so then finally I built up the courage enough to tell her one day, and I just said, how I knew this word, I have no idea, but I just said, my brother sexted me. And I just remember her gasping. And then it goes black from there. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but from what I've heard, my brother, or my mom and my sister, they confronted my brother, or I don't exactly know what happened, but my brother was told to stop. And they thought that since I was so little, I would forget, and life went on. But then I started having flashbacks around 8 years old, and I always had this weird respect for my brother that did things to me, because I felt like, in a sense, he owned me in a way. Because we had a different relationship than anybody else. And my 9th birthday, I was able to have some friends spend the night. And I had this friend, her name was Sierra, and she spent the night, and she told me that my brother was cute. And I told her that my brother had raped me, because at the time I had learned what rape was, and I remember it blew my mind because I thought I was the only one in the world that was experiencing that. And then when I heard that, I didn't feel so alone. But then when I told her that, we just kept playing. But my sister had she had just gotten an MR2, which was a 1-seater car, and she was driving us individually around the block just to know, like, she was excited. I think she was probably like 19 years old, and she was excited to just drive us around the car. Drive us around in the car around the block, and she saw that we were having a lot of fun with her. But when it was my friend's turn, she told my sister what I had told her, which then she told my mom, and my mom asked me. I remember she called me outside, and there was this bench that we had outside. She sat me on the bench. She sat next to me, and she was caressing me. And I remember she made me feel so special, and I didn't know why. I thought maybe it was because it was my birthday. But then she asked me if I remembered what had happened to me, and I told her I did. And I don't really remember what she told me, but then I just went back to play with my friends, and that was it. And I guess word got to my brother, and the next day he told me he was very sorry, and he went on his knees, and and I remember I was peeling carrots, and I was helping my mom cook, and I was peeling carrots, and he asked me to walk over to him, which I did, and he got on his knees, and he broke down, and he told me that he was very sorry for what had happened. And I believe him because I saw how broken he was. So, fast forward to when I was 11 years old. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. By this time, my older brother, my older sister were out of the house, and so it was only my 2 middle brothers and myself, my parents, and my grandparents. My grandparents moved in because they were struggling, so my parents gave them our room. And I was sleeping on the couch, and my 2 brothers were sleeping on the floor. And I kept having this reoccurring dream that somebody was touching my butt, and I was really confused every time I would wake up because I didn't understand why I was having this dream. It was just very odd to me, but I didn't question it. And one day I was laying on my back asleep, and I felt somebody touching me in my privates. So then I started to wake up, and I kind of opened my eyes to see that my brother was hovering over me. And then he rushed to the floor to act like he was asleep, and I was just completely paralyzed. Yeah, I was really scared. And my mom walked out, and I remember thinking, like, fuck, thank you, God. Because you literally lit up my world when I needed it most. So I screamed to my mom, and I was crying, and I felt completely vulnerable. And I told my mom, Muhammad just touched me. And she looked over at him and she asked him, did you touch your sister? And he said yes. And all she told him was to go take a shower. And she had me get ready for school. And I went to school, told my best friend, one of my best friends, that what had happened. And she was just there comforting me. Her uncle would give us rides to school. And she was my next door neighbor at the time. And I remember thinking, like, maybe I could just tell the principal what happened, but I knew better than to say anything, because as fucked up as it is, I didn't want my brother to go to jail, and I didn't want my mom to get in trouble, because I really cared about their well-being. And when I got home, I thought maybe we would have a conversation, you know, I don't know, just keep your hands to yourself. But nothing happened. I just asked her what's gonna happen, and she just said nothing. And life went on. A few months later, my brother tried to do stuff to me again. And at this time, we were living in Mexico, and we were living in a shack in Mexico. Our walls were just 4 wooden doors, and our ceiling was just made of, wooden garage doors, and the ceiling was just made of wood. And all of us were living inside of that room. And yeah, so then Muhammad started to try to do stuff to me again, and they found that he was, like, addicted to porn, and he was drawing porn, and he was just constantly getting caught, like, masturbating, and for some odd reason, he just had this mesmerization for me. But he hated me. He treated me like complete shit. He would call me a bitch, and he just couldn't stand the sight of me. But the moment I went to sleep is the moment that he preyed upon me. So yeah, when I would go to sleep, I would find that he would be trying to do things to me again, and I would tell my mom, and the only solution that she could think of was to nail a sheet to the ceiling and safety pin that sheet all around the top bunk that I was staying on, to have him to stop him from reaching me. And I remember this moment where I was sitting on my mom's lap crying, because I was completely terrified, because I was living in the same house as the predator. And I don't know, I felt safe in my mom's arms, even though I wasn't far from safe. I was far from safe. And I would constantly have nightmares. So then, yeah, I just always had a horrible relationship with my brother Muhammad, because and I remember I would try my best I would walk on eggshells around him, because I just wanted to get along, and I just didn't understand why he hated me so much. And it really hurt my feelings, and I felt like I was just a pathetic little puppy trying to just receive love because I was just that open and willing to forgive at the time. So then, fast forward to when I was 15 years old, my sister had moved back because she heard that Muhammad kept trying to do things to me. My mom would call my sister and say, like, your brother's doing this, your brother's doing that. So my sister felt the obligation to move to protect me because she realized that I was just, I was not safe. So she moved from Vegas and moved back into the house, and everything was good. I felt like I found my light again when she moved in, and I felt so happy because the only thing that made me happy in my childhood was my sister, because she gave me rides around the block just for the hell of it. And she's the only one that could really make me smile. So there was this one night that my family from Vegas was visiting, and she wanted to go see them, so everybody was spending the night at my grandma's house, and she went over there to spend the night. And I remember I was begging to go with her because I was so afraid to be alone in the room. But I didn't end up going with her to spend the night because there probably wasn't enough room or whatever. And I remember being so paranoid. I was just so anxious when I laid my head down on the pillow, and I had this bat that I would keep with me every night under the bed, and I ended up putting the bat under my pillow. But I talked myself out of that anxiety because I realized, like, you know what, I'm working myself up because I've just been through a lot of shit, and nothing's gonna happen to me now. I'm 15, all this shit is over. So I put the pillow back under my bed, and then I fall asleep. And then I wake up I had a computer in my room, and I wake up to the mouse clicking, and as still as I could, I looked over to my left because that's where the computer was, and I saw my brother Muhammad watching porn and getting his pants down, and I knew right away that he was going to try to do the same thing that he had always done. So I was very desperate at the time, and I was trying to figure out a way that I could calm him down and talk him out of doing whatever it is that he was going to try to do. So I said, I'm awake, and he exited out of the porn, and I just said, hey, I just want you to know that I forgive you for everything that you've done. I hope you don't hold any of that over your head. And he was just like, wow, really? And from what I know, I thought we had a deep conversation. I think he ended up walking out of the room. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the next day I felt so completely stale. I stayed up the whole night after he had left or whatever, and I just could not fall back asleep from all the nerves that I had. And I told my mom about what happened. I told my sister, and the solution was to put the computer in my mom's room and put a lock on my door. But throughout all of this, everything that happened, I was always told not to tell my dad, because if I told my dad would end up killing my brothers, and it would be my fault. And then my dad was the breadwinner. Who knows what was going to happen to us? My mom's going to end up going to jail, and it's going to be all on my shoulders. And of course, I was trying my best to protect everybody, and I didn't want that to happen to anybody because I really cared about what happened to them. So life went on, and I've found myself living with a lot of anger and anxiety, but mostly depression. I don't really have much of a close relationship with any of my siblings because I just don't trust any of them. I still speak to the people that have done stuff to me, and I don't know how to walk that journey with them. So I'm really angry that they've not just had my back the way that I have. What I've learned about all this is, and what it's taught me, is to really love the people that I love and to really be there for the people that I love, because I hate to see my loved ones in pain, and I will fight tooth and nail to make sure all of the people that I love are okay, well, as best as I can. So I've learned how to be a fighter, and that's not always the best because I will fight. I will really fight someone. But in some weird way, I find a lot of joy in it, to protect people and to just hurt the person that hurt them. But obviously I know that stems from my own sickness. It's affected that I am in relationships, because by default I just don't really trust people, but I also find myself not really trusting I guess I just have poor judgment sometimes on trusting people, and I just trust the wrong people, and yeah, it's hurt me in a lot of ways, not just the abuse itself, but once somebody hurts me, it's really hard for me to let them back in. Because I just don't feel like they deserve that part of me anymore. And yeah, so because of all the abuse, if you look at almost every single picture of me when I was a child, I'm never smiling. And I guess it's because I just became a recluse and I didn't know how to share myself really. I remember having this friend, and her name was Amber, wherever she is in the world. She, I believe, was also being abused by her brother, because I remember she told me she was. And her and I used to give each other oral under my siblings' bed. And we would also go and look for cigarettes in the neighborhood, and we would smoke them at like 7 years old. But it was our own little secret, and we did it willingly with each other, so we felt like we were in our own little world. And also, just like as a teenager, well, when I was younger, the doctor I remember the doctor checking my eyes and my ears and all that. And after he was done checking my eyes, he looked at my mom and he told him, "Your daughter's very stressed out." And my mom was just like, "Oh, wow, okay, yeah," taking whatever advice it is that the doctor had to give. Then once we got home, the doctor said that Gabby was stressed out. How can a little girl be stressed out? Oh my God. And just brushing it under the rug. And I just remember thinking, like, help me. Like, fuck, I thought that was my way out, but it wasn't. And for the most part, when I was younger, I was very obedient and submissive. But once I became a teenager, I completely rebelled because I realized that I had the power. But I did it in the wrong way, and I became very angry and disobedient towards my parents, and I got into drugs, and I started hanging around the wrong people, and I became promiscuous, and yeah, that hurt me in the long run. But I had no guidance. I was just doing the best that I could and filling the voids that I had in the wrong ways. And I became pregnant at an early age. I was 19 years old when I became pregnant, but because of her, she completely saved my life. I was in an abusive relationship with an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I had her in my arms, and I found him laid out with bottles around him, and I realized, like, there's no way that I'm going to raise my daughter in this environment. It was one thing that I put myself through that, but I would never put my daughter through that. So even though I have not that great of a relationship with my mother, I called her, and I called my sister, and they got a U-Haul, and they were there for me the next day. A lot of people expect for me to have this hatred towards my mom, which unfortunately I can't deny that it isn't there, or that it is there. Did I say it right the first time? Okay. But it is there, and but I think she's trying her best to make up to being there for me, although she still denies ever remembering me telling her any of these things. So she just can't admit it to herself, I guess. But I know if I needed something, she would be there. But yeah, that's a work in progress. I'm still trying to... Okay, let me stay on one topic. Yeah, so my daughter saved my life. And even though I still had some fucked up habits, she was still the light that kept me going. And yeah, so being a single mom was pretty hard, but I realized within myself that I couldn't, as much as I wanted to be overprotective, I realized that I could not be that way with her, because I did not want to traumatize her because of my hurt, my pain. And she's a resilient little girl now. I haven't always been the best parent, but I'm trying the best that I can with what I have. But yeah, I got into drugs, meth in particular, but other things as well. I was on that for some time, and I don't know, I just got myself out of that. But also, after I had my daughter, I had gained weight, and I became very obsessed with my weight. So I picked the habit up, the bulimic habit up, and it was very self-destructive in that way. I was able to overcome it a year or two later. It was very hard, but I did it on my own, and yeah, I still have lots of body image issues, but I understand that there are healthy ways to go about that, and I just try my best to when I get depressed, I become a recluse, and it's very difficult for me to take care of myself, but I'm able to, there's just this automatic response within me that just has enough energy to take care of my kids. Yeah, because I just want them to have a decent life. more than decent life. And I've been in and out of therapy for a very long time, but it's really hard to find a good therapist. Shout out to Frank in Thousand Oaks. He's the only one that's been able to to start a fire within me, and I'm so grateful for him. Yeah, being depressed sucks, and when I'm in that dark space, I do not know how to get out of it. But it's just this cycle. I go up and down months at a time. So it's very tiresome, but yeah. And as far as my parenting, I'm not sure, because I think as any parent, you always feel like you're not doing the best that you can be doing. But my kids have a roof over their head. They're very smart. They have food in their bellies, and I think I'm doing a decent job. But I know sometimes I'm not as nurturing as I should be, and that's probably the deepest wound that I have, because I don't want to damage my children. I do have PTSD, and I know that gets in the way of me being able to give all the love that I can to my kids, because sometimes I just don't have enough energy, and I sleep like shit because I still have nightmares, and I'll get panic attacks and I can't breathe, and I'll get flashbacks when I'm not even thinking about it. So yeah, but every single day I think of the abuse. I know that affects the way I raise my children. Yeah. Just my brother Muhammad. I don't want my kids around my brother Muhammad. I believe my other brother is a changed person. I do believe that wholeheartedly. And yeah, I believe he's changed, and I've forgiven him. But I mean, maybe it's stupid of me, but yeah, I do really believe that my daughter is safe around him, or my kids are safe around him. But it's really hard for me to be around my family. I get very irritated quickly, and I don't have much of a personality, I think. I mean, I'm always a jokester, so I can joke around, but as far as like opening up to my family, it's a no-go. Yeah, Frank, that therapist that I met in Ventura, he was the, to my surprise, he started off at a rape crisis center, and he worked there for a very long time. So that was, I don't know, it was just pretty cool to know that he had been around a lot of people like me. Because all the other therapists had always diagnosed me as bipolar, and I was like, I'm not fucking bipolar. Like, I would read the symptoms and I'm like, I don't, like, what the fuck? But they're like, no, you are. And so I would believe them because they went to school for that, you know. I'm like, well, they know more than I do. But then Frank was like, no, they always misdiagnose, especially sexual assault victims or sexual abuse victims. And he's like, you have PTSD. Everything you're telling me are symptoms of PTSD. And my reason for shooting this is because if you're fucking depressed and you have no idea what you're gonna do to get out of it, hey, so do I. I have no fucking clue, but go outside, take a fucking deep breath. Like, that helps me. That helps me. I don't know what the fuck helps you, but whatever helps you, go fucking paint. Fucking go on a run. But do something healthy. Like, I don't have even the answer for my own life and my own destiny, but I'm just trying my best to fucking trudge through the mud as hard as I can. And I'm a fucking fighter, and I will keep going even though sometimes I feel like dying. But I realize that that is just my fucked up callous mind and my cynical ways, and I'm sometimes very black and white, and you know, some days I'm black and some days I'm white, and it's okay to fucking be depressed. It's okay to not be okay. And if you feel like you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, I don't fucking either. But it's the people around you that are the fucking lights. And be grateful for that. Teach your kids boundaries. Don't think because they're your children and you love them and you're seeing them through fucking rose fucking colored glasses that they're not curious. Every child is curious, but teach them to not act upon every curiosity they have. It's not okay, and it will get them in trouble, and it will hurt you and your child in the long run. So, yeah. Do that. There was something I wanted to say. And for the record, I just want to say I am grateful for my family. Part of me is saying this out of guilt because I don't want anybody to get hurt, but at the same time, I'm learning how to forgive everybody. Do I see that in the next 5 years? I don't fucking know. I hope so, but I understand that people are people. We all don't know how to deal with things in the right way. We all don't know how to do right. And even though I love my family, I am best far away from them. I don't know.